All right, Jackson, you posed this question on social media. Who is most likely to have a breakout season for the Rockets this year and why? What was the most common response you got? And does it line up with what you think is the right answer?
Yeah, so I think overwhelmingly, a lot of Rockets fans really believe that there are two names that are kind of poised to have, or I guess in the best position to have breakout seasons for the Rockets. And one of them, in a little way, is kind of some low hanging fruit, and that's Jalen Green. Because we've seen the highs that he has, right? When Jalen Green is playing at his best, he looks like he should be an all-star. He looks like he could be the best player on a championship contending team. He is an elite scoring guard, and he's rounded out the rest of his game to where now he's become a really adept playmaker. He's a better defender. He's a better decision maker. He's even a better leader. You're seeing him kind of take those maturity steps, organizing the little informal Rockets training camp earlier this month, getting all the players together under one roof, get some of that, cohesion going on. So for Jalen Green, right, the biggest issue for him is just going to be, can he be consistent, right? Can he eliminate some of the lows in his game that have really brought things like his efficiency numbers down? And, every so often, right, he has the really big games that pop, and then he has, those stinkers that pop up every so often. So if he can eliminate those and just get to a place where he's more consistent, then I think we could very easily see a breakout season from him. But the other name at the top of the list, and this is my personal favorite choice, is actually Jabari Smith Jr. Jabari Smith Jr., he's going into year 3. Yes, he had a really rough rookie season, a lot of lack of structure in the Steven Silas era, Houston Rockets. But then, year 2, Ime Udoka comes in, instills a defensive identity with this team. And we really saw Jabari Smith Jr. level up a little bit to where, he averaging, about 14 points a game, 8 boards, took a massive uptick in his 3-point percentage, right? We got the Jabari Smith Jr. that we thought the Rockets were going to get in his rookie season, where he was kind of highly touted as this versatile defensive prospect, lights out shooter out of Auburn. And if he can continue to trend in that direction, if he can continue to improve his 3-point shooting, get it up to a place where he's shooting 37, 38, 39, maybe 40%, and keep trending positively in that direction, as well as really embracing what I think is his best role for this team, is being the defensive anchor of the Rockets, right? Look, Alperen Sengun is not a bad defender. Let's dispel that notion, but he's never going to be your defensive anchor. That's just not his forte. It's not his role on a basketball court. So if Jabari can be, I'll give you this example, kind of the Draymond Green of the Houston Rockets, right? That roaming defender who can blow up plays and be your weak side defender and kind of be the vocal defensive anchor of this team. I think that's a way for him to level up this next season.
Could I make a case for Amen Thompson given his incredible skill set? And yes, I know that he has to improve his outside shooting and his shooting in general, but is there a case to be made for Amen Thompson?
I think there is. It becomes a lot harder when you look at him in, and he was actually the third name as far as just the total like vote tallies that I looked at on social media. He was the guy that came in third place behind Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. And it makes sense because when he was inserted into the starting lineup for the last quarter of this past season, his impact was incredible, right? He's a guy that just makes things happen when he's on the floor. He's already easily the best defender on this Houston Rockets roster just going into year 2. Imagine how much better he's going to be after an entire offseason of strength and conditioning and, being able to work with his coaching staff and refining the skills in his game. So, I mean, the biggest question for him is just going to be, is he going to get enough runway to be considered, for a breakout season? Because if he's going to be stuck in a role where he's only playing 20 some odd minutes off the bench, then it's going to be really hard to have a quote unquote breakout year if you're in a limited role from a production standpoint. But I do think there's a very distinct possibility that maybe there's a shakeup in the Houston Rockets starting lineup at some point this season, not early on or anything, but when you look at how productive Amen Thompson has been in limited minutes, it's really hard to envision a world where the Rockets aren't trying to get him closer to 25, 30 minutes a night because of productivity is just off the charts. So Dylan Brooks, you might have to keep an eye on that rearview mirror.
You speak about a runway. I imagine that situation is the same thing for Cam Whitmore. Is he kind of in the same situation as Amen Thompson?
Yeah, I think when you look at a lot of the reserves for this Houston Rockets team this upcoming season, obviously you've got Reed Sheppard just drafted, Cam Whitmore, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, who is on track and healthy ahead of training camp after missing about 75% of last season with the leg injury. And then Steven Adams is the one veteran of that bunch, kind of your essentially 5-man bench unit for the Rockets. It's unfortunate because Cam had such an impressive rookie season. He is an elite play finisher. He's a guy that can knock it down with the best of them from beyond the arc. And then if he gets closed out hard on, he's going to drive and he's going to make you regret trying to contest him at the rim. But he just doesn't have, I guess, the dynamic levels to his game that some of the other bench players do. Tari Eason and Min Thompson are able to impact the game in such a huge way defensively, as well as being able to do things on the offensive end. Reed Sheppard can shoot the lights out of the ball and is going to likely be kind of a poor man's Fred VanVleet in that second unit. So it's unfortunate, but I think Cam Whitmore might be the guy of that entire second unit group that gets kind of squeezed for minutes here and there, because really he's an elite scorer. And I'm not going to say he doesn't bring anything else to the table, but he's really got to, improve in other facets of the game to be able to beat out other guys like Min Thompson, Tari Eason, and Reed Sheppard.
The max contract extensions possibly for Jalen and Alpi, could that be a distraction before the season starts on Wednesday? Rafael Stone, I don't talk contract. It was asked. It's been asked again. And it's been asked before. Could that be a distraction moving forward?
I don't think it's going to be a distraction per se, because if anything, first off, it doesn't really impact anybody other than those two. The only way that I could see it being a distraction would be if one of them gets the extension and the other doesn't. And you could put that either way. You could spin it where if the Rockets decide, hey, well, Jalen Green's cap hold next offseason is so close to his max contract number, we feel confident about his future, we're just going to go ahead and extend him right now. And then they don't do it for Alperen Sengun, or vice versa. I could see that generating some animosity between the two of them or within the Rockets locker room. But all signs point to the fact that the Rockets are likely to not extend either of them. They're going to make both of them go into the year. And even though Alperen Sengun has already proven that he is worthy of that extension, they're going to go into the year. They're going to save some money next offseason and be able to have some financial flexibility, essentially what the Philadelphia 76ers just did with Tyrese Maxey, and being able to, delay his extension in order to have all that max money to throw at a big name like a Paul George to really cement themselves with a big three in the Eastern Conference. That could very well be the Rockets next summer by not extending Alperen Sengun right now. So I don't expect it to be a distraction. And if anything, it'll be a motivating force for both of those guys to have the best seasons possible, because they are now playing for their next contract.
The Rockets had a community event on Wednesday, to a man singing the praises of this new practice facility. You can have 2 courts now instead of 1, so they can have 2 runs going at the same time. The fiercest position battle in camp ahead of the season, which position will it be?
Man, I think you look up and down this roster, and I already mentioned it a few moments ago, but Dillon Brooks is, I don't think, long for that starting small forward spot on this roster. And it could be two different names gunning for that position. It could be Tari Eason, and it could be Min Thompson. We saw just how effective Min Thompson was when he was in the starting lineup last season, albeit that was a different version of the starting lineup because you had Jabari Smith Jr. slotting over to fill the hole left by Alperen Sengun due to his season-ending injury. But you see that Min Thompson's already the best one-on-one defender on this Houston Rockets team. He's the best point of attack defender. His impact on that side of the court is unbelievable. And he's already exceeded Dillon Brooks's, value in that regard. Not to say Dillon Brooks is a bad defender, but if you can upgrade him on that side of the ball. Now, the downside is, Min Thompson still can't shoot the basketball, at least as far as we know, right? Based on last season, shooting 13% from the three-point line. That's not great numbers, unfortunately. And I doubt that he's going to get it up to, 30%, 35% in the course or over the course of one off season. But that's a battle to be on the lookout for. And then also Tari Eason. So Tari is a guy that obviously he missed so much of last year, but Tari, going all the way back to his rookie season, he's just a guy that you put him on the court and good things happen. He's a chaotic force defensively. A defensive playmaker is the terminology I like to use to describe how he impacts the game on that side of the floor. And then offensively, he doesn't overstep. He pretty much stays in his lane. He's a decent three-point shooter, albeit on lower volume, 36%, couple of attempts a game, few attempts per game, I should say. And so he would be kind of the most seamless switch to take over the starting small forward role from Dillon Brooks. But if I had to give a hot take ahead of the season, it would be that I don't expect Dillon Brooks to finish the year as the Houston Rockets starting small forward. Now, maybe that's by way of a trade. Maybe that's by way of just one of the other two guys improving enough to a point where they slot them into the starting lineup instead of Dillon. But I don't think he's going to be the starting small forward by game 82 of the year.
Given Reed Sheppard's success in the summer league, Are expectations still realistic among the fan base for this guy? And have you increased your ceiling for him? I mean, you mentioned the name Fred VanVleet a little bit, but has he increased his ceiling amongst the Rockets faithful?
Well, I mean, one nickname that I saw some Rockets fans dubbing him, is Snow Curry. So that's one that we can use here. But look, I think that Rockets fans have a tendency to, overhype some of their own products, at times. And I will say, though, with Reed Sheppard, the talent is absolutely there. The poise is there. You hear the way that his teammates talk about him, despite the fact that he's just a rookie. He literally hasn't played a single minute of NBA action. But you heard Amin Thompson just the other day at the Rockets community event when asked what stood out most about Reed Sheppard. He said and he was kind of almost like bewildered when he was saying this. He goes, he's got Curry range. Like, that is high praise from somebody who is as elite of a defender as Amin Thompson, somebody who has had to guard Steph Curry at the NBA level. To have him say, your new teammate, to say he's got Steph Curry range, I think for Rockets fans to understand is, as a rookie, he's going to be basically a poor man's Fred VanVleet. And that is an incredible floor to have as a rookie. The sky's the limit for him, right? You see the combination of the shooting ability, the poise, the playmaking, all that. You can start throwing out comps like, again, like a Steph Curry, like a Steve Nash, like a Chris Paul, when you see him pull up for the mid-range jumpers that he hits with such ease. They look like layups to him. So I don't think he's going to have, this monumental rookie season where we're comparing him to a Victor Wembanyama or anything like that. But I do expect him to be an integral part of what this Rockets team is doing this season and moving forward. He's likely your long-term point guard once, if Fred VanVleet leaves the team next offseason.
As we're getting closer and closer to the season, which team in your mind in the West has had the best offseason?
Oh man, you look up and down the Western Conference, and it's not quite the arms race, I'll say, that the Eastern Conference is, because my goodness, you had some Eastern teams make some massive moves. I will say that I think you have to look at the Dallas Mavericks, who are obviously fresh off their finals run against the Boston Celtics. They were a little, I don't want to say it was a disappointing run. I don't think anybody thought, based on where the Mavericks started the season, that they would have been the team to make it out of the Western Conference, but they made some adjustments. They made some midseason pickups with Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. And then this past offseason, right, being able to add a guy like Klay Thompson to an already, incredibly potent offensive team featuring Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, I think you got to walk away thinking the Mavericks did improve. They got better, and that's a team that got better already off of a finals trip. They should be the favorites, as much as it, I have to begrudgingly say this on a Houston-centric segment. They should be the favorites to make it out of the Western Conference again this season.
Which team would you put number 2 on your list? Oklahoma City? San Antonio?
OKC's pickups were really impressive. You might make the argument they overpaid for Isaiah Hartenstein, although he gives them, a much needed big to help kind of anchor that front court next to Chet Holmgren. And then Alex Caruso, I thought, was one of the most underrated pickups of the offseason. OKC was already the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. My biggest knock on them is just, they're still, I think, a year or two away, in the sense that they're still a very young, very inexperienced team. And look, sometimes the talent might just win out and the experience won't even be a factor. But there's just, you hear NBA players talk about it all the time. There's a very distinct difference between regular season basketball and the 82 game slate there, and 16 game basketball, and making it to the postseason, understanding when things slow down, and just kind of, navigating the trials and tribulations of a grueling postseason run. So I think the OKC Thunder are maybe one more postseason defeat away from like evolving to their final form, if you will. But OKC had some impressive pickups, and the Spurs might be a sneaky team with Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes adding some much needed veteran support to Victor Wembanyama and the rest of their young cast. I kind of equate those pickups to what the Rockets did this past season, adding Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks to their young core. Now, unfortunately, the West is going to be a bloodbath, so I don't think the Spurs make the postseason, even though that might be a jump that they're hoping that they can take this season, but they will easily improve by a margin of anywhere north of like 10 to 12 wins guaranteed by just those 2 names alone.
He is Jackson Gatlin from the Locked On Rockets podcast. As always, Jackson, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me on, Jason.